computer. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to our lesson on imagination and intuition. I just want to open this space first with a couple of acknowledgements, starting with acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land from where I am sharing from, the Yugambeh people. And I just want to acknowledge the elders past, present, and emerging for being the spiritual gateholders for thousands of years on the land of which we all exist on. I would like to continue this acknowledgement to my teaching lineage, all of those who have contributed either formally or informally, locally or non-locally, for me to be able to be here today as a teacher, specifically an intuitive intelligence teacher. And I would like to finalize my acknowledgement by taking a moment to share with you my pepiha, which is my lineage, who I am and where I have come from. Ko waio, te taha o te whaia, ko tainui te waka, ko pukihikio me te tui o te ao marama ngā maunga, ko mangapu te awa, ko Ngāti Kinohaku te hapu, ko Ngāti Maniapoto te iwi, ko Waipatoto ki Oparura te marae, ko te tui o te o marama te wharekai, ko Wetere tahi rawa ko Tiria Ekatoni oku mātua tupuna, ko Chris West oku rawa ko Teresa tahi oku matua, ko Kia West. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. And I would like to now guide you through a process that will support you in opening and expanding into the information and knowledge that we are sharing today. So if it is safe for you to do so, closing down your eyes and begin to deepen your breath. Breathing in through the nose, filling your belly as much as possible, and holding at the top. Letting it all go now out through the mouth with an audible sigh. Taking in another deep breath. Holding at the top, this time noticing any tension you might be holding in your body. And as you exhale out through the mouth with an audible sigh, let it all go now. Taking in one more deep, deep breath. Holding at the top and feeling your whole being soften as you take this moment in time to pause and open, letting it all go now out through the mouth. And with your eyes closed and your breath deepened, we signify to the nervous system that we are safe to be here. Bring 2 fingers or the palm of your hand to the center of your chest and begin to direct your breath into this space as you direct your consciousness into this space. With this physical touch, we identify that we are diverting out of the busy high beta brainwave state of the functioning reasoning mind and dropping into the brain within our heart, our true intelligence. Bring to mind now thoughts, memories, or experiences that evoke gratitude, and allow this feeling of gratitude to expand with ease and with grace, coursing through your body and out through all of the layers of your subtle anatomy, and then further out still all the way into the depths of your soul. giving yourself over to this high frequency vibration. I'm just going to move into silence for just a moment as we hold this feeling state of gratitude. Taking in a deep breath now and letting it all go. Holding that expansive state as you begin to bring gentle movement back to your body. And when you are ready, blink open your eyes. And let's enjoy that space as we begin this transfer of knowledge. So I do just have a couple of housekeeping, making sure you have some water handy. This learning environment that we are in, it is not it is not merely not just an interaction or exchange of words. We are here shifting our vibration by allowing this into our consciousness. We are expanding into the truth of who we are. And that requires us to stay hydrated so that we can best support this evolution. If you were able to print out your workbook, making sure you have that with you. Otherwise, just a journal and a pen is fine. And using that to record any notes that you might find interesting, or anything that you would like to deepen your understanding of, anything that really challenges you that you would like to come back to and do some further exploration of. And of course, if you have any questions, please record them as well, because at the end of this session, we will open up the table for you to be able to ask them. So this lesson, Imagination and Intuition, is a part of the 10-week program, which I will share with you at the end of our time together. And I just wanted you to have a bit of context that this is actually the last lesson inside of that 10-week program. So it is going to be slightly different to how I will be delivering it inside of that full program, because there is a bit of a progression for us to get here. The reason that I really wanted to share this now is because it is one that has been quite challenging for me to really get my head around and to fully understand. And the best way for me to be able to learn that is to, one, deepen in and immerse into my own understanding of it, but also to then actually teach it, because that is how we are best able to learn. So in that context, we are going to just quickly review the previous teaching that those of you who signed up and attended my last webinar, we did the science of intuition. And that was where we discussed the different peer-reviewed sciences that demonstrate to us how it is that our intuition works. And in that lesson, we discussed the interconnected consciousness that connects us all. We discussed the quantum field, or the one mind, and we also explored our heart brain. And they will be referenced throughout our lesson today. If you are attending live or catching the replay and weren't able to watch that, let me know at the end and I would be happy to send that through to you. So for today, what we are diving into today is the correlation between our imagination and our intuition. And we'll be exploring the multidimensional nature of our reality and how that fits into what it is that we are discussing today. We are going to explore the language of our subconscious, and we will then dissect the impact that data input from digital media and other forms of media, how it plays a part on our subtle anatomy. and what we need to be aware of moving forward into this very dense digital age. So at the end of the transfer of knowledge, we will then have a practice that will support you to deepen your experiential understanding of what we are going to learn together. Because it simply isn't enough for us to receive through our cranial mind and then not do anything with it. We actually have to apply what it is that we're going to learn, so that all of those neurons can begin the process of becoming stronger and strengthened in what we're applying. Again, if you have any questions, please just write them down and I will answer them at the end. And then we will wrap up tonight's lesson with some information on the full program that this belongs within. And we'll have a quick chat about the prerequisite for your enrollment into that course. So let's get started. And we are going to start with imagination. I want to start with the imagination by first quickly recapping on what intuition is and how we can access it. So our intuition is our biological technology. It is what we all have within us. We all have access to, and we have access to that locally and non-locally. We will discuss different ways that we can interpret locality and non-locality through the multidimensional reality. And the difference between intuition and intuitive intelligence is trust. So a lot of people claim to be intuitive, but they are not doing anything with that intuition. Intuitive intelligence is when we actually recognize that we are receiving or having an exchange with our intuition, and then we trust it enough to actually take action on it. And that is absolutely what we are wanting to focus on inside of what I have to offer and what I am teaching you, is that you begin to trust your intuition enough that you take it further than just having a cool download and actually starting to action it into the world, bridging it into the world. We will quickly now recap on the subconscious. So the subconscious, or we are made up of 5% consciousness, our conscious reasoning mind, 95% subconscious, and it is our subconscious that is the program in which we are functioning. And so long as it is within the subconscious mind and not in our consciousness, then we can experience things that don't marry up with what it is that we are trying to create from a conscious, from our conscious reasoning mind. When we start to explore how imagination plays a part in all of this, this will give you some greater context. So what we are opening up even more to this evening is that the quantum field is our subconscious. And these diagrams here, which, by the way, I went to the extra effort to write them backwards because I hadn't yet learned how to mirror my screen, and I'm so impressed with myself doing that. But I'll never have to do it again, apparently, because Zoom does mirror. But anyway, these we'll get into a little bit more because there's been some really cool correlations that I have noticed since deepening into this module, and I'm really excited to share that with you. So what we are focusing on though is the quantum field being our subconscious, and it is our imagination that allows us to interpret it using our non-local intuition. So the way that we are able to see, hear, feel, know our subconscious mind is with our imagination. It is our imagination that we are able to direct consciousness. So where I want to go with that now is when we are using our imagination, we are focusing on a particular image or a sound or whatever it is that our intuition communicates with us. There is a module inside of the full program that we dive into this a little bit more deeply. And it is with our imagination that we are actually doing that. Intuitive intelligence is an act of prepared imagination. And oftentimes we are afraid that when we are receiving our intuition, that we are actually just making it up, that it's, you know, it's just a fragment of our imagination. Now, the reality is that's true, but what we're going to begin to open ourselves to is that when we begin to trust that that is actually our intuition, then things begin to change, things begin to open up. So at some point in our childhood, we began the process of having our wildly imaginative intuition squashed with the conditions that society and mainstream organizations and institutions placed on us. I don't know about you, but I totally see this, how wildly intuitive my children are. I have a 4-year-old daughter who is so connected to concurrent lifetimes that I often have to bring her back into this lifetime because she gets so carried away with the things that she is able to see, and it just really blows my mind. And I'm a lot more open to it now, having been trained to understand what is happening. But when my now 9-year-old was extremely open to his imagination, I had a lot of fear. I remember him when he was about 4, and he was telling me about when he used to, the last time he was alive, and he was driving a car, and he used to build houses, and I was there, but I wasn't his mom. And at the time I was just like, what is this kid on about? Like, I was so afraid of what he was sharing with me. And it's and that is so part of our mainstream conditioning to squash the the amazing things that our children will share with us, because we don't understand what they're talking about. And it's really interesting because this is really something that has been landing even in more depth for me as I have been exploring this, is that, you know, how many times will our children, even when with the things like eating food, how many times will our children tell us that they are full, but we're like, no, you can't leave the table until you have finished everything on your plate. Like, we're right from that instance telling them that their intuition is wrong and that they don't know. We know better than what their intuition is telling them. It's really fascinating. And it is in so many ways like this that we are squashing their intuition. And this plays out, and as a result of this, we have lost touch profoundly with our imagination. And in doing so, we have become numb to our feelings and cut them off from the heart. We have anesthetized ourselves. We have disconnected from the creative organ of our imagination and our capacity to appreciate beauty. So what you need to know and begin to open to is that the true functioning of our intuition is your imagination. The play of and with our creative imagination is the very act that cultivates, empowers, and transfigures our reality by bridging what we are attuning to from the non-local field and imparting it into matter, into the material world. So let's have a little bit of a chat around how that actually happens. And this is where these glorious, so many circles and rings and fields and are happening behind me. So where these diagrams actually came from were inside of a clinical tutorial where I was being of service as a peer mentor. And the teacher was talking specifically to how our subtle anatomy works, and how we, one of the students had asked, you know, can you describe that to me? And she described exactly this. So she said, so picture this circle in the middle, and that's your ego, that's your physical body, that's your conscious reasoning mind, that's everything that you will, that you will experience on the human level. And then there's a circle around that, and that's our subtle anatomy. That's that's where we store programming. That's where we store limiting beliefs and fears and blocks and all of those sorts of things that many different ways to describe the one thing, really, fear. That exists inside of our subtle anatomy. And then the ring around that is the soul. As she was describing this very visual symbol of the relationship between human to soul, at the same time, I was beginning to see this. So the third dimension is much like the human experience. It's the material world. It's everything that our five dominant senses will experience. And then we have the second ring, which is the fourth dimension, which, much like the subtle anatomy, is where density is starting to form. It's where things are starting to slow down and matter is being imparted into this realm. And then the outer ring is our fifth dimension, which is like the soul, where everything exists at all times, with time and space not binding it to anything. It's just all there. All things that could happen exist inside the fifth dimension, exist inside the soul. So what's I find really interesting about that, and I am sure that you will too, is that when we begin to discuss where imagination fits into this, well, imagination fits inside of the fourth dimension. Now, many different philosophies refer to this fourth dimension as the bridge. It is the bridge between the fifth dimensional outer layer into the third dimension. And I spoke about this in the Science of Intuition, where when we are talking from that fifth dimension, from that non-local field or the quantum field or the one mind, everything exists because it is all wave. There is absolutely no density or matter to it. It is pure consciousness. Now, in order for us to bring a potential, bring an idea or a vision from that fifth dimension, we then have to somehow get it from the fifth dimension, to that third dimension. We need to get it from soul into our physical experience. And our imagination is where we begin to impart matter into a potential to then bring it into the third dimension. We must also, in the same token, recognize that when we are storing fear in our subtle anatomy, that is what is being bridged into our human experience. And that is why when inside of this program, you will hear me bang on about meeting and clearing subconscious fear, because as long as you are not, that is sitting in there and being fed into and being bridged into your reality. So what we are really learning right now is that the fourth dimension, the subtle anatomy, our subconscious, is our imagination. And from this understanding of how we function, and when we begin to understand and recognize that this is happening, whether we are conscious of it or not, is that we are biologically aligned to a very extremely, infinitely powerful stream of energy. Now, I want you to understand that imagination may often be referred to as fantasy and fantasizing, but it's only fantasy when you are using your imagination to escape the ego, when you're hanging out in the subtle realm or the fourth dimension because you don't want to address what's real and happening inside of the physical world. It is a superpower when you take something that perhaps maybe started as a fantasy and begin to understand that you can actually do more than just escape, but actually direct your consciousness with your imagination to begin the process of bringing it into a tangible physical experience inside of the material world. The key to doing just that is building up your self-esteem, your spiritual self-esteem, and by practicing your intuition. And the way that you do that is by clearing the subconscious blocks inside of your subtle anatomy, inside of your imagination. So we're going to move forward now and have a little bit of a chat around the language of our imagination, of the subconscious, which is symbolic sight. The language of our intuitive intelligence does not speak English or any other man-made language. It is purely through symbolic or spiritual sight that it is communicating with us. Everything around us is encoded information, whether we are consciously downloading it or not. That is something that is still, like, I have layers of comprehending that, to understand that the way I have merchandised my room, my space, is encoded with information. Some of it was consciously done, some of it not. But that is the reality. That is the nature of how our subconscious interacts. The way that we can begin to attune ourselves to the way that our subconscious is communicating is with our passionate, focused intention and attention. Another thing that I will drive home in every single lesson that I share with you. We can witness symbolic meaning of our lives by surrendering to the deeper purpose of our life events. This allows us to perceive these events in our life impersonally. It is the end of judgment. So this is when we can look at some very real, confronting things inside of our life experiences and detach from them and begin to zoom out on what is happening. We can look at arguments with family members and begin to see this, what our subconscious is offering us through looking at it through our symbolic sight, through our spiritual sight, and by impersonalizing what is actually happening. And when we view the world with spiritual sight, the world simply is. And what it is an opportunity to meet ourselves as the cosmos every single time. This allows us, again, to be in non-attachment and to allow the flow of our intuitive intelligence to guide our lives beyond a personal agenda. That is not selective. That is not something that we can turn on and off. It is always functioning. It is just like a cog. It's like the breath. It's always happening. Another really, really profound way that I have learned to observe reality through symbolic sight is through archetypal lenses. So an archetype is a pattern of energy that is repeated over time, enough for us to be able to recognize that, hey, there's a pattern happening here, and we can then be able to understand that from that pattern there is greater meaning to that. For example, the mother is such a prime pattern. I always fall back on her. I don't know why. I think she's just an easy fallback. But the archetype of the mother is one of a person. It doesn't necessarily have to be a woman. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a woman who has children. The mother archetype is that of a nurturer, of a carer, of someone who, in the shadow of the mother, will push down her needs in order to meet the needs of those who she loves and cares for. That is just one way, that one archetype out of thousands that have been recognized so far. They're always evolving, because that is the nature of our reality, to continue to evolve. But that is one example of how we can understand our reality through symbolic sight, through archetypal lenses. So, for example, when we consider that we are in an archetype of chaos at the moment, when we are experiencing global chaos in the likes of having a global pandemic, we can look at it as in a lens of, poor me, if you are attached and taking that personally, which there are a number of people, and that's quite normal, because in this subtle anatomy, there's a whole heap of unmet fear driving that. Or we can choose to zoom out and see what that guidance is available to us in us taking a moment to direct our consciousness to understand what is being shown to us. ultimately, every single encoded message that we receive consciously or unconsciously is guiding us home to the truth that we are the cosmos. Now, when we can prime and activate our imagination and have that as a running dominant program, then we are able to bridge from the fifth dimension into the third dimension. So what we're really wanting to focus on is that middle ring. We're wanting to focus on our subconscious. We're wanting to focus on our imagination, because by the time we are experiencing having things show up in our third dimension, we've already bridged that, where our past beliefs and conditioning is from yesterday. So that's already been processed. It's already been plucked from the fifth dimension, and we have, say, unconsciously, subconsciously bought into a particular belief, and by holding on to that belief, we have made the most subtle subconscious choices and taken the most subtle subconscious actions, and then ultimately that is what we are then experiencing. And the way that we can negate that is, one, by starting to get conscious of the actions that we are taking, by becoming aware and conscious of the programs that are informing that experience. So that being said, this is where it becomes really critical of the information, that the data input that we are receiving. And specifically, why we're honing in on digital media inside of this lesson is because it is largely the way that we are being programmed at the moment. Back in the day, it used to be in person. It used to be predominantly family members or teachers or pastors of the church, or people that you would be seeing face to face, who would be putting in this data and beginning to suppress your imagination and your intuition. Now we have it every single time we absent-mindedly are scrolling on our news feed. Anytime we turn on the news, even inside of movies, inside of music, every single way that the modern day human is escaping reality through digital media is the largest way that our subconscious mind is being programmed. And this is the number one way that we will have our imagination, our fourth dimensional bridge, or our subtle anatomy contaminated. Because again, the language of the subconscious is through symbolic sight. So it's seeing all of these images that are being filtered into us at thousands of miles per hour, maybe. And that is beginning, that is processing, that image that is being observed from a non-local time space. You might be watching a movie that was created however many times ago, years ago, but you're watching it now, and in doing so, that's beginning a processing, that's beginning a potential from the fifth dimension through the fourth dimension, which is your imagination, which is your subconscious, which is receiving all of these symbols and images, encoding data into them, and the risk is that is what is informing your experience in your physical reality. It makes it harder for us to trust our intuition, because when you are experiencing images, or you're having dreams that are rather disturbing, perhaps because of the movie that you watched the night before that was scary, and so you're now unsure if what was coming through that was true, or if it was just the movie. The reality is, your subconscious was experiencing it as though it was true. Now, this is where I got really hung up when I was learning this content, when I was learning what was being taught to me, because I am avid for receiving information, from receiving symbolic insight by watching movies. And since I must admit, since learning this, that there has been a shift in how I'm perceiving these, because I know that while say for example, if I'm watching a scary movie, which I did recently, but I did feel quite guided to that, and I will describe that to you, because I think it is very interesting and profound. But if you aren't conscious that what you're watching is feeding your subconscious, your subtle anatomy, your imagination is experiencing it as if it's real. So if you're watching a scary movie, you're experiencing these symptoms of fight or flight because of the images that are being presented to you, because of the frequency of sound that is coming in and shifting your vibration and your field. And all of a sudden you're in this state of survival, and you haven't connected that. You're perhaps enjoying the pastime of watching a movie that, you know, that gets you excited, gets that adrenaline coursing through you, but your subconscious is like, I'm actually in danger. And if you don't have the understanding or the awareness that that is what's happening, then you turn the movie off and you're still inside of that program. That program is still running rampant inside of your system. Your imagination is bridging a whole heap of fear into your experience. Now, when I watched this particular movie, I want to share this with you because there is still the potential for you to be able to practice being discerning, what you're allowing in, and what you are accepting as true. And you know, I teach a range of tools that help to make the subtle anatomy agile and fluid, because that is where we want it to be, in order for us to be actioning and living from an embodied intuitive intelligence. But what was the potential is to gain insight. For me, I remember when I was first on this pathway, and I was watching a series on Netflix called The OA. And it was kind of around the time that I was, you know, learning different modalities and curious about a whole new world that I had no idea existed. I thought it was just in fantasy novels that I grew up reading. And for me to realize that there are communities that actually lived from this space was really mind-blowing for me. So when I watched the OA and I was just learning all of this stuff, and I was just like, oh my God, it's shamanic. They're doing shamanism. And I was like, there was so much of what she was sharing, but without actually, you know, blanket saying that. It was so symbolic of the representation of our reality through that lens. And it was really altering for me to be able to experience that in that way. Like I genuinely felt my consciousness rising by opening to what was being shared beyond what perhaps the original creator had intended. This particular movie, though, it's called Insidious. I don't know if you've seen or heard it. I remember the first one I watched, and it really, like, this was before my journey. This was when everything, you know, there was all that woo-woo stuff was terrifying. And I remember watching the first one, and it scared the crap out of me. Like, I was hearing footsteps through the house for like weeks after that. Like, it really reeked hemp, like whatever that, it stuffed up my subtle anatomy big time. When I really felt this prompt, I felt really guided to watch the most recent one. And having done this course content, I was very mindful of what my teacher would be saying to me by watching this, but I was curious. And so I watched it, and I the whole way through, I was reminding my subconscious that I'm safe in my bed. And anytime like I felt myself moving into fight or flight, I would breathe and tap until I felt myself expanded and safe again. But what was so incredible about this movie was there's a scene in particular that I was just like, oh my God. So she is the main woman is going into a haunted home, and it was actually a home from her childhood, and there was a whole heap of scary stuff happening and yada yada yada. And the way for her to be able to access the entity that was inside of this home was she had to go down into the basement. And this is exactly how the movie was playing out. She had to go down the stairs, which is much how we will guide our clients to go down into their subconscious. And then she comes to a door, and it's a very vibrant red door. It's the only thing inside of the scene, which is also a part of our process, a part of our journey with guiding our clients into their subconscious. Describe the color, the size, the shape of the door. And at this point, I'm like, oh my God, we're going to meet and clear subconscious fear right now. She goes through the door and goes into this hallway, and the music's happening, and there's lots of things to really ramp up that fight or flight response within you. And down this hallway, there are all of these little prison cells. And as she's walking down, I can't remember what she referred to it. It was like the shadow or something. It was the perfect analogy for the subtle realm, really. But in each prison cell, there were these grotesque looking beings. There were, one was a child, and they just, how creepy children look in scary movies. There was like a little, demon-y looking thing, like all of these different things. And as I was watching it, I was just like, wow, this is a representation of my work. This is what I guide my clients to do, to meet these grotesque figures and restore them to the light. But what was coming through at the same time, because I had set that intention that there was something there for me to learn here. What I was learning is that the reason people are so afraid to meet and clear their subconscious fear is because of movies like this. They don't have the same understanding and the same consciousness that I do as to the process of what it might look like, and that it doesn't actually have to be scary. It is no wonder that, I still have some people who are like, don't you bring your woo-woo to me, because they're really scared of my work. They're really scared of what that would mean for them. And it's not surprising. It's all through the media. It is all through the way that our reality is presented to them. And I just thought that was so profound and insightful. I'm not suggesting go and watch that unless you're prepared to do some epic work with me, so that it's but yeah, look, I guess I was challenged by this because of my ability to observe from a really detached and symbolic sight. But the reality is, most of us aren't. Most of the world are not attuned to that level of discernment. Most of us are not attuned to that level of how our subtle anatomy works, of how our imagination works. And I think it's really a really critical lesson for us to be able to open to, because I see a huge potential. I have a huge vision for clearing mass levels of subconscious fear in the same way, of being able to present images that are intended to open us to the truth of who we are, which is the cosmos. And that's something that I am really excited about. So when we are mindful, and when we're beginning to truly understand that it is our imagination that is the bridge that carries us and carries intuitive insights through to us, then we can begin to, again, discern what it is that we are receiving. And instead of seeing a terrifying movie about, demons, we can see a perfect symbol of what is beyond the known of our reality. And it doesn't have to be a fearful, fear-driven thing. We can begin to shift our perspective to hold a greater image, to hold the symbolic sight. When we begin to function from that level as a normal, it's just, imagine a world like that. Honestly, it's just mind-blowing. Our imagination is a portal, and it is impartial to what it is receiving. So again, you're watching a program, you're mindlessly scrolling on your timeline, on your social media, and what if you haven't watched The Social Experiment, again, more incredible insight from media, what it actually teaches us is that everything that is being fed into what you're seeing on your timeline is your subconscious programming. So what you're seeing inside of your timeline is programs that you aren't yet aware of, that are moving through to feed your addiction to that fear. And so again, this is really powerful for you to recognize, because when you begin to recognize that, and you're seeing heaps of things around, you know, the horrible things that are happening to children, the horrible things that are happening, you know, there's so many people who are afraid of what is happening in America right now. There are so many people who, you know, for us here in Australia, you know, one of the big things that was coming through my field was the suicide rates in Melbourne with that extended lockdown were astronomical. And that was, you know, part of my programming being fed to me through my timeline. And where we're given the power to that for being able to bring our consciousness to that, is then we are then gifted an opportunity to shift our perspective on that particular thing. Intuitive intelligence is us recognizing with our spiritual sight that everything is serving our awakening, even the horrible stuff. The reality is that inside of the soul level, where everything exists, even the bad stuff exists there. And it is through the subconscious programming inside of the subtle anatomy that is what is imparting matter enough into that single experience inside of the soul and bringing it into our reality. So the way that we heal that, the way that we bring that and return it to love, is by going into that, going down the stairs through the red door to meet and clear that subconscious fear. So what I want to do now is take you through an experience, because we have a holy task moving forward from what we are learning today, and it is twofold. So first is to remind ourselves every day that we are the cosmos. Second is to live from our spiritual self-esteem, take action from this remembrance, and meet with our subconscious fear. There is no other task required from us. That is the task that those who are called to this path, those who are curious about what life could look like for them as a cosmic visionary, to begin to take faith-filled action on embodying this remembrance of who we are. And the practice that we are going to be doing together now is a practice of intuitive intelligence tapping called Remembering Soul. And I'll be reading through yay, Michelle's like, yes, me too. What we are doing is using tapping, intuitive intelligence tapping. So if this is the first time inside of one of my classrooms, I will quickly run through what the intuitive intelligence tapping entails. So first of all, I will begin by explaining the tapping points. So we have the side of hand point, and you can simply tap on the side of your hand. We have the top of head, and then we have the eyebrow point. We have the side of eye. We have under eye. We have under nose. We have the chin. And we have the collarbone point, which is just about a centimeter or so down from the bone, the knobby bits. We have the thymus point. We have the underarm point, which is where your bra would sit, the bra line. Then we have some finger point tips. So where your cuticle line sort of is, just on the outer edge of each fingers, you can work your way down each of the fingers, working your way back. Now, I don't think this is one that involves a huge amount of guidance as far as the tapping points go. So what I'm going to invite you to do is just tap on this side of hand point. That will be the most simplest for this practice for those of you who may be watching and aren't entirely familiar. So what we are is so much more than our physical, mental, and emotional bodies, as we have demonstrated in these amazing, amazing circles. Remarkable as they are, we are soul, we are light. And we know that a small portion of our great soul light is temporarily inhabited and inhabiting a human body. Eternally, we are soul in all its wisdom and grace. This is our divine nature, the truth of us. We are soul. In remembering soul, we use tapping with visualization or our imagination to invite a more intimate awareness of soul communion. It is in the conscious reconnection with our soul and love that we can free ourselves, support ourselves to become the best version of self. We can learn to wash all our ideas and thoughts, our intentions and our desires, our hopes, dreams, and wishes through the wisdom and love of the soul. We can deliberately connect into the wisdom of the sage. And it is in the bosom of the soul that we find the love and support we may have been looking for all of our lives. It is here that we will know that we are loved, and loving. In this visualization, aligned with tapping, we may expand our consciousness to allow a greater flow of light to transport us to a feeling of deep connection, or rather of reconnection, remembering to all that we can be. Nothing here is new. We are simply remembering self in all its powerful beauty and truth. Let's begin by opening with our imagination. Closing down your eyes, place 2 fingers upon your heart chakra in the middle of your chest and take 3 conscious breaths, breathing in through the nose deeply and letting it all go out through the mouth. Continuing with your next 2 breaths in your own time, feeling each breath soften you. And as you do, imagine there is a light in your heart center and breathe into that. Observe as this beautiful energy begins to expand to include all of you. You are immersed in a cloud of brilliant white light. Imagine by either seeing, hearing, feeling, or just knowing a pathway of light moving up from the crown chakra through the top of your head, moving higher and higher. The energy flows up, up, up into your soul star chakra, approximately 30 centimeters above the top of your head. Notice just how powerful your imagination is, a true gift for creating a new reality. You may sense this energy center becoming more alive and vibrant. You find it easy to feel this powerful energy center. Your soul star chakra begins to radiate as the light flows, moving up and out, expanding into finer and finer frequencies. Begin tapping on the side of your hand and repeat after me silently or out loud. Even though I may have forgotten that I am soul, I accept myself with love. Even though I may not always feel my soul love, I accept myself with compassion. Even though I can't always hear my soul wisdom, I honor myself for all that I have achieved. Continue tapping on the side of your hand. This disconnection from my soul awareness. I don't always sense my soul wisdom. I feel separated from my soul love. This disconnection from my soul awareness. I don't always sense my soul wisdom. I feel separated from my soul love. This disconnection from my soul awareness. I don't always sense my soul wisdom. I feel separated from my soul love. Take a gentle breath. Keep tapping on the side of your hand, noticing what your imagination is guiding you to see, hear, feel, or just know. And repeating after me. I choose to know a deep communion with my soul. I choose to experience my soul wisdom. I choose to luxuriate in the love of my soul. I choose to know myself as the deep, luscious love of my soul essence. I choose to be the love and the beauty of my soul. I choose to know my soul and I are eternally one. Keeping your eyes closed and breathing with consciousness. Luxuriate in the immersion within your soul's mystical, magical beauty. Let yourself be enfolded by your own divine perfection. Balancing, restoring, rejuvenating, revitalizing, nurturing, loving. Everything that you have been searching for is here. Know that you can communicate with your soul, and that you may feel, sense, imagine, or hear what your soul would have you know. Surrender into a deep communion with your gracious soul, and know there is deep expansion occurring at every amazing level of you. Going to move into silence for just a couple of moments. Allow yourself to receive easily and effortlessly whatever is most needed. You may choose to give a clear intention to remember your soul connection every day until it is ever present in your awareness of self. Taking in a deep breath, gently lowering your hands to your lap, letting it all go out through the mouth, and bring some movement back into your body. And when you are ready, blink open your eyes. I'm going to unplug my microphone now so that I can open up the table for any, you can share your experience with that visualization and imagination, or if you have any questions, now is when you are able to ask them. Can you hear me? There we go. So yeah, if you want to share any of your experience, if you have any questions, just let me know.
No questions, but that was a beautiful experience in that tapping and being able to connect into the soul. So thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. And if you are watching this on the recording, please feel free to ask your questions. If you have them, just email them to me and I would be happy to respond to them. I will now share my screen with you and run you through. Actually, before I do that, I do just want to kind of give you a bit, just to reaffirm how that practice really embodies what it is that we have learned together tonight. So we used our imagination, yes, to be able to experience what was guided in that process. But what was also really important to understand is that what we were doing was we were expanding from this circle here, from that, the 3D and the ego, we were expanding out to the soul and the fifth dimension. And in doing that, with tapping, we were opening this middle section here to be more clear, so that we can, once we move into that space of experiencing what was available to us from the soul, from the fifth dimension, then we can begin a process of taking action and being conscious about how we bring that through the subtle anatomy, through the fourth dimension of our imagination into our physical experience. So I just think it's a really powerful practice for us to really integrate with what we have learnt here tonight. What I will do, I will send you through an audio of that, so that you can then take that home and begin to practice meeting and clearing subconscious fear, because that is where it's at. All right, now let's share our screen. I do just want to share with you the full program of what I have just taught you this evening. Oh my gosh, here's all of the crazy notifications. Where do we go? Slideshow. I'm beginning. All right. So, initiate your cosmic visioning is the, I don't know where to put that. Sorry. Can you see those little bit? There we go. This is the 10-week program. I have to update this. It is, I have settled on 10 weeks. I think that is the best way for us to go forward with this program. So over 10 weeks, we have 8 lessons that we dive in together. That includes the kinds of intuition, the understanding the universal laws that govern our reality, energetic protection, and how to, keep the vampires at bay, the nature of our imagination, which is the what we've just learned together tonight. And I also have put in there an additional, some additional content about changing the way that we, normalizing, if you will, the way that we feel and experience chaos. I'm just going to pop this microphone back in. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Can you hear me okay? Cool. Sorry. So that is the outline of what is involved. So yes, as I said, there are 8 lessons that will be in an online space. Then the whole purpose of this is to support you to meet and clear subconscious fear, so that you can be living from your intuitive intelligence state of being, and so that you can begin taking faith-filled action towards a cosmic vision that is already available to you inside of the outer layers of our diagrams. And yeah, I'm super excited to be to getting this stuff out into the world. It has absolutely changed my life, and the way that I deal with life. And I think it is absolutely the future of our evolution. This is the running program that we need to all be functioning from. The way that you are able to apply for this and to enroll for this is that you must have must first sit through a one-on-one visionary tutoring session for me. Now, I have evolved what it is that I am here to do. I really love being a teacher. I think I'm a pretty good teacher. And so what I'm wanting to do and what I'm wanting to create for my students is a one-on-one way that we can support your evolution, support your education. I have no doubt that the people who are going to be enrolling with me are spiritual seekers. They are people who have been on this pathway and were feeling just as unfulfilled and unsatisfied in what they were learning as I was, because they hadn't yet found this information. They hadn't yet had this context of what is actually occurring beneath all of the trinkets and superstitions, as my fierce high priestess would tell you. So this, the investment for a one-on-one session is currently 197. This is a little bit outdated. I have 2 bookings left at 197 before it's jumping up to its to the market value rate of 249. So if that is something that you are considering, please let me know. And this one-on-one session is really about priming you to be able to evolve at an accelerated rate. So that is how you qualify to be able to enroll in my 10-week program. I am launching this program so I'm launching it in March 21 for the first week of April kickoff. So, and I have opened a waiting list. People are jumping in on that now. So yeah, I would love to have you join me inside of that 10-week program. I'm so excited to get it out into the world. Where to from here? So what you are able to do from here is, with the workbook that I've sent out, take some time to reflect on what it is that you have received tonight. What has changed? When you go through the process of identifying what fears and resistance were showing up for you coming into open to this information, what's changed? What hasn't changed? That workbook gives you plenty of opportunity to be able to really begin the neurons firing and processing and strengthening as they familiarize themselves with this information. And take action. It's one thing to receive information, but you have to do something with it. And that is my ultimate intention, is that you take away what you have learned tonight and begin to take some radical action in your life, to ultimately start visioning for an incredible future that we all have to take self-responsibility for bringing it into. I can't do this on my own. All right, so thank you all. I would love if you could perhaps send me some feedback. Let me know what you loved, what you didn't love, any of it. I would be grateful to receive that. I am so grateful to those of you who have joined me live, and for those of you who are catching the recording. I am having another webinar scheduled for next month, so keep a lookout on Kia Creative Channel for when I post the event details for that. But until next time, so much love to you, and I'll see you soon.